Hello Hambini fans and welcome to another episode of Hambini Builds. Fresh from the delights of Belinda and the Look KG386 and last year's Lightcarbon gravel build, I've decided to buy another cheap bike. In this case, I have bought this Lightcarbon LCR017D Frame for my new road bike. And this is the thinking man's bike, and let me show you why. This isn't a particularly expensive frame. You could probably pick it up for about 700 quid delivered, maybe slightly more. It depends on how the tax man's feeling and what level of VAT and tax he's going to blow on you this time round. Now, this is what I class as like good value and very good engineering. On a scale of 1 to 10, if I took the Lightcarbon away, I would give this frame a 9.5. It's that good. Now let me show, and that's because of the things that I like. Now, being good is a subjective thing, and paint jobs might be good to some people. What I want is manufacturing brilliance. When you buy it, you get this frame, this fork, integrated handlebar and stem with its top cap, and a bicycle computer mount, this aero seat post. You also get the hardware to mount the fork into the bike, so bearings, spacers, and the wedge ring for the seat post, spacers, and a plug to put the Shimano Di2 battery if that's what you're going to use. Now, at the time of doing this video, you can't go and buy this like in a web shop. You actually have to email them, and that's one of the reasons why it's cheap, because you are buying from an OEM. Now, what tickled me slightly was I published some of these pictures on Instagram, and a load of people said the paintwork on it, or the bits around the bottom bracket and the headset, were rough. I don't really know what they're thinking. These things have been machined, which is, you know, a step up from what you would normally get, which is overspray. So if you look carefully here, I'll zoom in, around there you see a slight dull patch. That's where it has been faced. If you compare it to this frame, you can see all the paint is still there. This one needs facing. There's also overspray on the inside. Every contact point on this frame that needs to be machined or is, you know, critical towards alignment and stuff like that has been machined. It's not just a case of masking it. You can look down here where the wheel goes. That's been machined afterwards, and that has been machined as well. I've put the screw in there. See the brake mounts, they've been machined. Obviously the bottom bracket has been machined. This is the lower bearing for the headset, or fork, however you want to call it. You can see around here it looks slightly dull. Now, some of my Instagram viewers said, oh, that's crap. That's actually really good, because someone's taken their time to machine that flat. So that is an improvement. The insides of this frame are absolutely immaculate. I've not seen production like that for quite some time, and certainly not at this price point. So in there, it's very clean. And then if we go through around here, the bottom bracket's T47. In there is also immaculate. I'll take some pictures and then put them on later on, but you aren't really going to get any better than that. The Lightcarbon people, they were at Eurobike, so I spent some time talking to them. Again, you can see this is the non-drive side of the bike. Again, machining there. This T47 is a T4768. So here I've got two T47s, the common type. So this one's the T4786 and this one's the T4768. Now, if I move them so the threads are in line, you can see this one is much chunkier than this one, because this relies on a wider bike frame. Now, the big difference is a practical difference, and it's those kind of things that I appreciate. When this is like hard up against a frame, you haven't got much in the way of engagement. So the tool can only engage on like 2 millimeters of material. This, on the other hand, can engage on a full 13 mil. To illustrate that practically, this is a T4786 frame. This is the tool that goes in it. You can see it hardly engages at all. You've only got that much material to engage with. That's not ideal. And then this one, which is the T4768, you've got much better purchase on there. Right, you might be asking the question, why would someone who designs a bike frame go for an 86.5 instead of a 68 like this one? This is slightly narrower, so the frame at that point is narrower. Technically speaking, it could be less stiff, but if you have a Hambini BB, it's quite a chunky piece that goes on the end of it, so the flex is less than the equivalent piece in carbon. You have to be much more accurate when you're designing at 68mm than you are at 86.5. Now, if I turn this round, I have already put this in a lathe. Hopefully you can see that, but that is bang on through the middle. So the guy that's built it and the guy that's specified the tolerances on here has been very good. Now, on the actual boring machine, when I've checked it, it's 0.02mm, which is pretty much the best you can get. It's almost zero. This is the fork. Again, this is, I wouldn't expect this sort of quality at this sort of price point, but again, you can see just about all of these things have been machined. So they've had the masking put on, and then around it, it's been machined flat. This is the front wheel mount. Again, you see it's been machined. This is the steerer tube. Now, it may come across as something silly, but on here we do actually appreciate round objects, and this is really quite good. It's round, consistent wall thickness, it's not scabby, and inside is, again, is immaculate. This is the seat post. It's a fairly standard run-of-the-mill affair. It's aero section. In here it uses a Ritchie, I think they call them WCS style clamps, and they've put some fake tubes in there just to hold it for transit. It's got like a rubber sleeve across there to hold it. So you've got pretty much, a large degree of angular movement in that. This is one of the accessory packs that you get with it. And this is the kind of thing that I kind of like, and I guess the end user would like. If you're not going to use like some of the wire holes and things, they provide blank plugs so you can plug them off. It's got the mount for a Di2 battery, so that just slots into the seat post. More attention to detail, and I think this is what kind of like sets it apart. Now, this is the clamp for the seat. Now, how many times have you actually seen one that's serrated? They've really gone to town on that to make sure that your seat post doesn't slip. This is the headset system for the bike, and you get a couple of spacers with it. These ones are semi-split, so these are plastic. You can open them out, get them round, and then you can raise or lower the handlebar as you choose. The bearings are, the top and bottom are the same. I think they're MHP16, I could be wrong there. The top is where the cables and the hoses are routed if you choose to go down that route. This is the wedge ring that goes in the top of it. If you put it in, you can see how the steerer tube will go through the middle, and then the cables will run round through the outside. Now, this design is probably a slight Achilles heel for all of these bikes, because they have to route the cables somehow. But what it does is it neglects clamping on part of the steerer tube. So this section between here and here is not clamped. It's only between there and there where it's clamped. And that level of clamping force is determined by the amount of preload that you put in, because as you clamp it up, the ring squeezes, and that's why you can get the ring of death. Now, I've seen this design in Windspace bikes and a lot of other bikes from the Far East. Surprisingly or unsurprisingly, I've not heard of any of these breakages. It seems to afflict only specialised bikes or Canyon or something else where they've got a bit cocky. This is the standard top cap and compression plug that comes with the bike, but you get a special set of handlebars so you can replace that so it looks a bit neater. And this is the part that goes immediately above the frame, where the cables and the hoses route through, so they go through here. All of this is stepped and keyed, so these two holes here key into here, so your spacers all hook up nicely. If I can actually get it in. There we go. So this is a fairly standard carbon handlebar. It's, I guess, a fairly contemporary design. I guess the only neat feature, which is becoming fairly standard now with these ones with integrated stems, is so it looks neat. You get this top cap to go over it, so then you won't see, well, it just gives you a flush line. The routing through here is, you can either have it internal or external. So in this case, you've got a couple of options. So you can run the cables or hose through there and then out here if you want to run it externally, or through here and then straight down through the insides of the bike frame. Also get this adjustable mount. I've seen this on a few different handlebars, but I think they're all made in the same place. One side is Garmin, the other side is Wahoo, and you can just undo these two screws, put it on, flip it whichever way you want, and then you've got an out in front computer mount. It just makes it fairly neat. To do some weights, we've got the handlebars. They are 361 grams. The seat post is 153 grams. Headset gubbins with all that good stuff is 150 grams. The Di2 battery holder, clamp, screws and all that sort of stuff is 44 grams. Weight is 950-ish grams. Is measured 420, 430 grams. Right, it is that time of the show again. It is time for PowerPoint. Let's just check the pen is working. I'm back on the mouse now because my wrist hurts. Buying the highest tier frame from an OEM by Hambini, aged 5. Give a bit of context. This starts off with me at Eurobike when I had a trip around Hall 9. I'll link to that video above and below. I ended up at the Lightcarbon stand, and then I had a fairly in-depth chat with the sales owner. So he spoke to me about the QA/QC systems that they follow and the variable press that they get, and people were buying basically the cheapest frames available and not caring too much about anything else. I guess a bit like Trace Velo, because he does it for fun, and good on him for doing it. Now he also said, and this was more intriguing, is the buyers from the Western brands only really cared about the bottom line. And he was actually getting a bit pissed off by that because his brand was being associated with it. So he's now trying to make a collective decision to move away from that, and they're doing a lot more direct to retail market. Right, the money slide. This is how I bought the frame. So after talking to the guy from Lightcarbon, you come along, well, I wrote this down, so this might be errored. So there's a little disclaimer on the right hand side. It might not even apply to other brands, but I think this gives you a fairly good indicator of how these things are done. So along the left hand side here, you've got each individual category, like what it's made out of, frame construction, geometry checks, post-manufacture, painting, accessories, manual packaging, all that lot. And then here, approximate costs. Each of these criteria has a Z rating. I don't know why it's called Z. A part of me thought it was maybe IT rating, but it may be a Chinese standard. I don't really know. Z11, Z7 and Z3. The lower the Z number, the better or more comprehensive gear that you get. So for example, if we pick geometry checks, if you pick a Z11 frame, there's no geometry checks. Z7 has every 50th frame jig checked, and then if you pick Z3, then every 5th frame is jig checked. The BB headset, seat post, box stays checked on every frame. So there's a considerable difference in QA/QC between them. So you can look through there. The bulk, I mean, the guy said the bulk of his customers get something akin to a Z7. And then some of the like pure OEMs get the Z11, which is basically a bare frame. He said this is very rare, and that's what I've kind of ordered. Apart from I didn't get the full manual and I didn't get the Mondi style bike box, so I just went for no manual, which is a Z11 basically, and packaging, which would also be Z11 or Z7, whichever one you want. And that's it. So that's how you order the frame. Right, let me show you the Lightcarbon website. So this is the Lightcarbon website. It is an OEM website. There's no prices or anything on here, and that is what you are dealing with. You are dealing with a base OEM, so you've got pictures of their testing process, their frames, their rims, and you can kind of see here on the right hand side, custom solutions. That's basically when they make it for whoever they're going to make it for. So OEMs rebranded. The manufacturers the guy was going through was quite unreal, really. Some of the people you would never expect they were making them for them. And then this is like their booth at the show. If you go into the disc brakes, I mean, they sell loads of frames, handlebars, all sorts. The one that I've got is the LCR017D, which is this. Again, I mean, there's no prices on here. You can see, you know, how it's set up. It is literally just geared up for an OEM. So a buyer comes along, picks his spec, and then out it pops. So you've got all the bits and pieces, gubbins. It even talks about the bottom bracket and the cable stops and all that kind of stuff. And the EPS moulding, I guess we'll come on to that in a minute. Now, Dennis from Lightcarbon, I might have got his name wrong there, so if you are watching, please forgive me. He talks about product triangle, and I've seen this methodology in a few other places as well. You've got your triangle, and then you've got three criteria: time, quality, and cost. So let's say you want something that's of high quality in very little time, you end up having to pay quite a lot in cost. It's one of those ones where you sort of pick two from three. Again, if you want something that is of high quality, then you have to spend a bit of time doing it, and it also costs. So there you go, pick from that. Right, the frame is, this is the specs of the frame if you haven't already followed through. It's the high mod frame. It does come in a few other different types, but there we go. The handlebars, the stem, all that's included. The finishing kit's included. It's T4768, and some people thought it was T4786.5. It's not. So it's a bit of a, from a servicing point of view, that's better because you've got much better tooling engagement on that. The headset is keyed. I'll come on to that in a minute. And then the cost. So the cost is like, I say approximately because it's going to vary depending on the exchange rate. If you're in the US, generally won't pay any tax. But if you're in Europe, I guess the median VAT is around 20%. It took 3 weeks from the point of order, which was at Eurobike, to when it was delivered. Now, this is the build. So these are the other parts that I have to get. So this bit we've already talked about. And then the rest of it, 105 Di2, 9 Velo CD55 wheels, and then the LC and old pedals, and that basically takes you to the crux of the build. The choice of the wheels, I mean, they are probably the best made wheels that you can get at the moment. The lady who runs it, she's pretty sharp. In fact, she's very sharp. So they're aerodynamic wheels, well made, not any issues with them. 105 Di2 is the cheapest Di2 that you can get. So it was either that or SRAM. I could go down the SRAM route now, but I generally try to avoid it because obviously I'm trying this on a few different bikes. So I just tend to move towards the 24mm axles because it's reliable on everything. If you get a BB86 frame, like a Windspace, which I've got building up, using a 30mm or a dub axle in there is problematic. Right, this keyed headset and stem spacer, which I mentioned earlier, If you look inside the wedge ring, you see this little hole here and the corresponding pin here. So when you put the top on, it rotates the wedge ring round. So when you turn the handlebars, you shouldn't get any movement between the wedge ring or compression ring and the steerer tube. That is one of the most common causes of the ring of death that people talk about. It's caused by a mismatch in rotational speeds or axial movement, fretting, let's say, and that wears into the carbon, and that can obviously cause a few problems. But if you have the pin there, then it reduces that. And I've seen very few Western bikes come with that, but at this price point I've not seen another bike with it. I've got another ICANN bike and it doesn't have it. The Windspace bikes, the newer ones, do have this, but now they cost a lot more. Internals, I mean, the internals of this are absolutely immaculate. There's no stray carbon, there's no tenting, there's just nothing, and I guess that's to do with EPS moulding. You can see the Di2 wire, which is there, just over there, and then I pass the borescope through. There's another shot, again you can see it's just immaculate. So for a frame that's made like this and not a time frame which is like RTM, this is really quite good. And then again, about the finishing kit and the Z3 specs, if you take a look at the rib nuts, first of all they're plated, so they're less likely to corrode, and the quality of the rib nut is a lot better. And as per what the guy said, he said it was a 3-stage finishing process, so there's no splintering around the hole, and the hole has been reinforced. It might be a bit difficult to see, but it's slightly thicker around. Can't really draw that very well. It's slightly thicker where that rib nut goes through. This is some video footage through the frame, so you can see the cables over there. This is an intersection between where the seat tube and the stays meet. You can see how clean that is. There's hardly any imperfections in that area. As we go a bit further down, some expert borescoping there, hit a dead end. But you can clearly see it's a very clean frame. And then we come on to some differing opinions. Now, I put these pictures out onto my Instagram, and then loads of people commented going, it's crap, it's shite, all that kind of stuff. And they were really, I was I amazed? No, I wasn't amazed. I think there's a lot of prejudices still that exist. If you put a different badge on the frame, let's say you put a Specialized badge on the frame, people will be like, oh wow, it's great, it's brilliant, it's this, that and the other. The crux of it is, I mean, photographs can lie, I guess, and the filters and stuff like that might get it wrong, but I mean, mapped out of view, so you can see his comments there. He said there's no way your own T47i BB, that's not quite right. So it's not a 86.5mm bottom bracket, it's a 68. Will fit flush on the frame. Well, it does, and there's about 3mm of masked off area. That masked off area is actually is machined. The paint looks very fragile, that's a fair point. Edges are not clean, I don't know about that one. It looks good, in fact it looks good as most of look bikes. I don't think that's not a bad thing, to be honest. I don't think the paint job on look bikes is that bad, but it's nothing like a time. Now, if you're going to be subjective about it, would you say that was true? I mean, the time bikes, if you see the weave on them, the paint is very good, so it probably isn't as good as that. So, you know, you have to kind of accept that. But mechanically, I would say this is a very good frame. Then you get like some other people that come along and he goes, that soy boy spends all day reaming the reputable bike manufacturers in the world of their design, engineering, manufacturing practices, and then goes off and buys a frame from a company with zero reputation and unarguably lower standards and quality control. Well, I mean, this is just like I don't know. I don't know what to say. I think this is probably the mentality of the Weight Weenie. Maybe he's from Weight Weenies. We'll don't know. Right, the good. I would say objectively it was well made. There's not really much I can say about it. If you want to argue about the fragility of the paint, I think we're clutching at straws, but there we go. And then yeah, lots of people bought last year's gravel bike. So I bought a Lightcarbon gravel bike last year, and you know, plenty of people have them, and no one seems to have an issue with them. This is going to really put the bike shop out of business, or going to diminish their business, because you can build this bike like a DIY kit. It really is that easy. So I have built the bike, and I've been riding along on the bike, and that video will feature later. You can just literally put it together. It is the easiest bike I've ever put together, because everything just fits really well. Everything is aligned very well. So Lightcarbon or Yishkin are the OEM for some well-known manufacturers. Yeah. I think it's decent value for money. Now, the bad. It is not aesthetically polished. And what I mean by that is, if you take a time bike, you know, the hardware and stuff, it comes in this nice little pack with a Velcro thing, manual, all the gubbins in there. It all looks very nice. You don't get any of that with this bike, and that's, I mean, part of it was a conscious decision, because I picked none and none on that table. But it might put some people off, because people like those touchy-feely things. If you are into those touchy-feely things, then look away. There's no web shop, so you're going to have to go and email the lady or the guy, I think it's Cassie or Dennis, and then speak to them, and then they'll, you know, give them their address, and then out it comes. Whether they go down that web shop route, I don't know. But that's what you're dealing with. You are dealing with the person that made the Ridley, Specialized, Canyon, whoever it is, bike. This is the manufacturer. Right, there's some webpage with more data and stuff on hambini.com, and please comment and like below. You can follow me on Shitstagram and on Patreon. Patreon people get a discount on the web shop, and you also get stuff up front. Now that brings us to the end of the show. If you did enjoy it, remember to smash that like button. If you didn't, go screw yourself, and as always, keep banging your hairdresser.